Unfortunately, the media group states as a whole, when we're looking at the data, we're seeing a completely different scenario play out on the ground. And in today's episode, we're going to run through some of the opportunities, what we're seeing at auctions, and also the portfolio plans and purchases we're making right now for clients. Welcome back, listeners. You're on site with the Property Tradies after a couple of weeks out of the studio. Brodie, it's lovely to have you back, mate.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I haven't been fully replaced, have I? Like I've still got a spot here.
We'll see how you go this
Ah,
episode,
cool.
mate.
I'm on the chopping block. Great to
Yeah,
know.
that's it. So today's episode, really good one. Why 2026 is a golden opportunity and what we're seeing in some of the markets we're buying. And then also going through some of the purchases we've made for clients recently and where these purchases fit in their portfolio plans that we've got going on with them at the same time.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of value to take from this, and we've got a couple of good examples with real life scenarios that we've actually gone and purchased, and they're
Mhm.
already starting to show fruit and do really well. So, yeah, keen to show the listeners and explain to the listeners what is possible and what we're doing.
Yeah. So first off, I guess the market feels very uncertain for the average person. There's a lot going on in the media, a lot of headlines, and I take a lot of issue in this because it's not a true representation of different price points, different asset types, and different markets. For example, when the media goes and puts out information on Melbourne, hypothetically, or Sydney, they group everything as a whole. And in property investing, you can't look at everything as a one size fits all approach. And we've been to auctions on the weekend and we've seen a completely different story. And it just goes to show if you're waiting on the sidelines and you're in affordable markets, you're going to, in 6 to 12 months' time, live to regret just waiting and not making a move. And we'll touch on a few key markets shortly. But I guess with these media headlines, where do you see a lot of people going wrong and taking that information on?
Yeah, so I just this week I actually had a client send me a video from like Channel 9, or it was a
Mhm.
current affair or some bullshit like that. And Melbourne property prices are dropping, it's the worst I've ever seen, and every second property is getting handed in at auction. But like you said, that's only a certain chunk of the market,
Mm.
typically the higher end of the market.
Yeah.
Everything that I'm seeing on the ground, I know you're seeing as well,
Mhm.
is saying the opposite, but that's because we're buying in a different part of the market. And this really is true. But when people say there's markets in markets, like
Mhm.
it's not, you can't just group everything inside Melbourne as Melbourne.
Mhm.
It's there are obviously different suburbs, but then there are different price points in those suburbs which act completely different on their own.
100%. And I think a key thing to note is I had a look into recent downturns, well, sorry, past downturns in property market when, things change, interest rates rise. And typically the longest you ever see a downturn period is anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So that's a buying window. That means you can get in at a really good price and set yourself up for when the market turns. Because when we're buying, we don't want to be buying when it's super hot and you're having to pay a lot more for property, because if you look back in 10, 20 years time, it's all about getting in when there's the value there. um
Yeah, well, when there's fear in the market, people shy away and go into their shells, and then they end up kicking themselves later. And they go, "Oh, I wish I had a bought in COVID. I wish I had a bought in." Right now we're probably going through, what would you call it, an affordability crisis.
mhm.
I wish I had a bought in the affordability crisis of 2026. Like I swear to God, people will say this,
Yeah.
but the everyone out there on site who's listening to this potty will
Mm,
go, "Oh, I bought in that time," and
exactly.
I'm not one of those plebs who missed out on the boat. So there are always going to be times throughout history where it
Mhm.
seems like it's a scary and vulnerable time to pay, but that is when the best opportunities are.
Exactly. COVID, perfect time, perfect example. You have prices come back, 6, 8% or whatever it was. And then for the next 3 years, you see some of the best growth in property. So the people that bought in COVID, they would have made a shit ton of money over the last 5 years. And again, this is one of those opportunistic times. So I guess let's get into two key points. First one I want to make is a little bit of a prediction. At the moment, the Australian economy is slowing down, unemployment slightly ticking up. So, I guess negative sentiment around the economy. And what I think will happen is based off of this over the next 12, 18 months, 24 months, what we're going to see is prediction again,
Mm,
interest rates drop.
okay.
So I think we're going to see a period where interest rates come down quite a bit because what happens is as soon as the economy slows down, they need to start kicking it into gear. Now, in Australia, we've got two key things, which is the property market and immigration.
Mm,
Immigration numbers are slightly down and the economy's slowing. So what's the other lever that they have to pull? It's interest rates. That's how they get people spending again. They have more money in their pocket to buy goods and services. And this has a direct impact on the property market. If you combine that with the fact that they're removing investors out of the market with these tax changes, in my eyes, in 12 to 24 months' time, you're going to have a situation where if you buy now, rents are going to increase largely,
yeah.
10, 20%, whatever it is. And then you're also going to have interest rates drop. So if you're buying today, I think it's a perfect buying window because in that 12, 18 months time, your holding costs are going to look dramatically different in my eyes.
Yeah, it's about having that long-term vision,
Mhm.
right? And we are seeing it in the data. Like we look at it day in and day out, and everything is pointing towards prices are about to move and they're about to move in a really good way.
Mhm.
But the one thing that hasn't moved is the price. So
Yep.
how much pressure can a market
Mhm.
take before it moves?
Yep.
And you typically see it in the rental amounts first,
Mhm.
which we've seen rental prices are rising,
Yep.
and they're going to hit a point where they can't rise anymore, and it's going to then make sense to buy. Boom,
Yep.
there goes your property prices jumping up. So yeah, you're right. There's never a better time than when people are scared.
Yep. And that's going to lead us directly into talking about two particular markets that I've picked out for this episode. I've gone through, looked at the data, and honestly, we've been buying this type of asset for clients over the last 12 months. But as I was going back over the data, I couldn't believe how compelling the story is as to why this is a great opportunity at the moment. So the first one is going to be St Kilda units. Now, this is a new strategy that we're implementing for clients. Typically, property number 2 or 3, we still like the house for number 1, but let's go into some of the figures for St Kilda units.
Yeah,
So,
so just to be clarify, are
mhm.
we only buying St Kilda, just that suburb and no other suburb, or are we just looking into the suburbs data?
No. So a lot of areas in the unit market in those inner city Melbourne areas we are buying,
Hmm.
but I've just cherry picked St Kilda as it is a hot topic at the moment.
Yeah, cool, cool. Just wanted to clarify.
No worries. So first off, I want to say that St Kilda units haven't grown in price virtually for the last 10 years. They've been flat.
And so this is where the average punter goes, why the hell would I buy somewhere that hasn't grown? And it'll just continue to not grow, right?
Exactly right. So here's some of the figures.
Oh, hit me.
In 2021, the rents for St Kilda units were $350 per week on average.
Okay.
That was a yield of 3.8%. If we fast forward to today's figures, the rents sit at 620 per week on average, with rental yield average now at 6%. So you've had $270 a week rent increase, 2.2% yield increase, but prices are still the same.
Yeah, so this is the pressure that we were talking about on markets, that it cannot continue without something happening, without the burst of the bubble.
Yep. And the rents are a perfect example. I spoke about it on other podcasts. It's one of the best pre-indicators for price growth because if you get the yields to 6 or even 7%, what it costs to rent a property compared to buy it is virtually the same. So what happens? People buy the property. Now, some other really important statistics. First one is vacancy rates.
Okay.
So, for the listeners out there, if you don't know what a vacancy rate is, it basically shows us how many properties as a percentage sit vacant in an area. So basically sit on realestate.com for rent.
Right, and obviously we don't want to be buying in areas where there are a lot of vacant properties, right?
Yes, we want a renter in from day one, and we want the figures to be low because we want there to be a lot of competition for the rental properties because that drives up prices.
Yep.
In 2021, vacancy rates for St Kilda units were 3.8%. Now they sit at 1.4%.
Wow, that is a massive drop.
So a massive drop. So a balanced market for the people out there where rents aren't growing, they aren't going backwards, sit at 3%, and we're sitting at 1.4%. And that directly shows us why the rents have grown over the last 5 years. Now, on the demand side, because it's all good and well looking at rental figures, but we need to see, okay, is that price growth going to happen now, or is this still an early indicator?
Yep.
The days on market, so this refers to the amount of days it takes for a property to sell, specifically a St Kilda unit. In 2021, we're sitting at an average of 50 days, and now it's sitting at 25.
Wow, so it's literally cut in half in 5 years.
Cut in half. And again, a balanced market is probably around that 40 to 50 day mark, give or take, and we're sitting at 25.
So these are the demand metrics that we always harp on about. But if you've got vacancy rates dropping dramatically, so in other words, people want to live there, but you're getting renters way easier, and you accompany that with the amount of days it takes a property to sell,
Yep.
and that's just cut in half,
Yep.
all of a sudden the demand to buy and rent, pretty much just live in a suburb, has just gone through the roof.
Yeah.
But the property prices haven't changed.
Exactly right. And that's where opportunity is right there. It can't be a clearer picture in my eyes. I've, been analyzing property data for 4 years, and I've bought in markets that have doubled in price in a 3-4 year period. And the data looks very similar. While I'm not saying that this is going to play out the same way, what I'm saying is if we look at it in isolation, it's very similar to a market that is going to experience some really strong growth from a rental and capital growth perspective.
Yeah, the way I've always viewed data is it's a leg up on everyone else, right? So if you understand it and you can read it and understand what it means,
Yep.
then it's giving you an advantage on where to buy compared to the everyday person who is just buying in their backyard, for example.
Yeah. And then the last key point, which I didn't put in, but I remember it from looking before, is stock on market sits at 1.5%. So that refers to how many properties as a percentage sit on market to be sold at a given time compared to the total properties in that suburb as a whole. A balanced market, again, is around that 3% mark, and we're sitting at 1.5%. So we've got the demand supply factors from a capital growth and a rental perspective at the same time, and a yield of anywhere from 6 to 7%. So if you're coming in with a 20% deposit, if you're a tradie, FIFO worker, business owner out there, it means that within a 5-year period, the property is likely to be paying for itself, especially if my prediction comes through and we see the rent increases continue and we see interest rates come down. It's going to set you up for a really good start to the portfolio or an add-on to what you already have.
Yeah, love that. I love that. And we're seeing it. We are seeing it right now start to bear fruit. So
Yeah, well, we went to an auction on the weekend for an apartment in Elwood. So similar area to St Kilda, a little bit different. This property was run down to the max and it sold well over the reserve price. Probably 80 people there.
which is super interesting because one thing that I've noticed when being on the ground is typically, it's the done up market, the done up properties, the ready to go properties that attract the most interest because people don't want to put in the hard work.
Yeah,
But this property needed work
yeah,
and it still had 80 people at the auction.
yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah. Exactly right. I honestly thought going into that auction that it was probably going to be a really good deal, and I was surprised at the turnout and how many people bid, and yeah, went well over Kurt, the broker's price, who was looking to buy it. But again, this was in a really strong pocket, and this is a great example of a unit apartment that you want to be buying. The street was filled with houses. There was 2 small blocks on the street. So it's going to have that capital growth and owner occupier demand, which is why people wanted to buy it. Walking distance from the beach ticks all the boxes. Now, second market and asset type that I want to look at is units in Mordialloc. So again, we're sticking on the coastline of Melbourne. We're coming a little bit further away from the city. But one thing to point out here is units in St Kilda are a lot more apartment based, whereas units in Mordialloc are a lot more villa unit based.
Got you. Yeah. So instead of being like a one of 15 apartments or a one of 20 apartments, this is a one of four small little house type villa unit.
Yeah, compared to 2 or 3 stories, you've got single story detached,
Yep.
so like mini houses virtually.
You got a little
Um,
courtyard or
yeah, a little
backyard.
backyard. You got parking on the block. Sometimes attached walls, but still your own standalone house. Now, again, went to an auction on the weekend here for this one. I'll touch on that shortly. First off, some of the figures and why Mordialloc units and surrounding area units are a really strong case. In 2022, rents were 400 per week. Now they sit at 600 per week. So we've got a 50% increase in a 4-year window. Rental yields were at 3.3%. Now they're sitting at 4.7. Vacancy rates were already tight at 1.7%, but now they sit at 0.4%.
Holy shit. 0.4% vacancy rate.
Yeah,
It's if you can find me a vacant property in Mordialloc,
to rent. Yeah.
yeah, like fucking good for you. Go buy yourself a lotto ticket because they are so few and far between. There is pretty much a renter in almost every property
Yeah.
in the suburb.
Exactly right. And it just shows that people really want to live there. And then the last statistic, which is probably the most compelling, is
Okay.
in 2022, the amount of stock on market sat at 5%.
Yep.
It's now sitting at 0.5%.
Wow. So just to kind of educate listeners out there, 5% it's really high.
That's high.
And so we wouldn't touch an area if it had 5% stock on market. But to see such a dramatic drop from 2022 to now, 2026, at 0.5%, that is an indicator like I've never seen.
It's massive. And what I will say, just as a precursor, is when you see stock and market around 5%, especially when it drops to this level, it's likely that there might have been a small development of units in the area, which could have brought extra supply to the market. But nonetheless, going from 5 to 0.5% is a clear trend.
Yeah, it's almost too much to ignore.
Yeah. So again, what we're seeing here is we haven't had yields grow as much and rents grow as much, but we've got vacancy rates a lot tighter, meaning that it's probably going to grow a little bit faster than the St Kilda units. And on the auction on the weekend I went to, which was for one of these villa units for a client, the property was listed for 610 to 630,000.
Okay.
I valued the property around 680 at an absolute top. There was probably 80 to 100 people crammed into this villa unit complex.
Jeez
I could barely
Louise.
see the auctioneer.
Yeah.
And it sold for $717,000.
Wow. So the top of the range, what'd you say? You valued it at 680
680, yeah.
and it sold for 717.
Sold for 717, and this was a different. This is a beautifully renovated property, a little bit different to that apartment in Elwood, but it just goes to show that, anything you're thinking about auction clearance rates and grouping that into what the media is saying, if you use that to make decisions, you're going to get burnt
100%.
because we're supposedly in the worst buying times that we've seen in the history of property. So why are we seeing this happen?
Yeah, we shouldn't be seeing this happen. Why? If you're listening to the mainstream media, like you said, this is impossible. This
Yeah.
is this is witchcraft, mate. Like you can't continue on taking the mainstream media's word as gospel. It's
Yeah.
not. You got to go out there and look at it for yourself. And even us who are on the ground every week, this past weekend has still taken us by surprise.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time, but this has been an even more eye-opening.
Yeah. So that's directly why 2026 is a golden opportunity, because think about once the market, the sentiment from the media changes, right, and you've already got 80 to 100 people at an auction,
Mm.
how many more people are you going to bring in? And then you got the rental demand, and already the capital growth demand. This is a buying window that's hidden from the average person.
Well, I think the other thing to kind of throw on that is we're talking about how busy these places were, but don't let that deter you because it's only going to get worse. So
Exactly right.
you're exactly right in saying now is the best time.
100%. And again, that's not with all markets. There are some of the markets we're seeing the best demand. Again, not a one size fits all approach. So it's important to understand, and don't just go out and buy one of these properties in one of these areas, because it's only very specific types of properties that we're buying in specific types of pockets.
Yeah, it's a great point that you make. I don't ever just listen to this
Yeah.
on site and go, "Oh, I'm going to go to fucking Mordialloc or St Kilda and just buy the first
Yeah.
apartment or unit that I see." It doesn't exactly work like that. We use these numbers to guide us and
Mhm.
indicate us. And then it comes down to a street and property level purchase because not every unit is made the same and not every apartment is made the same.
Correct. There's a lot more due diligence, as you would know, Brody, as you're doing this for clients on these types of properties than there is for a house.
Yeah, so much more due diligence.
Massive amounts. And it's very easy to get wrong.
Mm.
And you'll hear horror stories because they don't understand what you should be buying and why. And they listen to generic feedback and make their decisions based off of that. But I think that's a very compelling story for all the listeners. It's clear as day what's happening. Now, let's get into some of the clients we've bought for over the last 6 months and just give the listeners some insight as to what we're doing with clients, and the different strategies that are available out there. It's going to depend on your situation. So, the first client, Charlie and Sarah. So, he's a chippy, and wanted to utilize some of his trade skills. Now, if he was in a different state, we probably wouldn't have gone down this route. But he's using the first home buyers grants, living in there, and they're going to do a renovation. So we got them an amazing property at the back end of last year in Narre Warren. $740,000. We had valuations come back pretty much instantly around the $800,000 mark. Next door sold for 950. So he's spending the first few months of this year, or first 6 months, we're midway through the year,
Yeah.
renovating it. And then the goal is after that year, they'll move back in with their parents, they'll rent the property out, and then they'll use the equity uplift and their savings over this last year to start building the portfolio beyond there and potentially do another little renovation like we've done with this one.
Yeah, it's a game plan, a tactic, whatever you want to call it, that we probably don't see enough and
Mhm,
that enough tradies aren't making the sacrifice to do.
mhm.
So just to make it clear, Charlie and Sarah, they're not actually from Narre Warren.
No.
They're from the southeast, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're from Melbourne,
Yeah.
but pretty much my point being is they were open to
Mhm,
moving into a property
mhm.
where the best investing opportunity was.
Yeah.
And so they go, okay, we have access to this first home buyers grant. Cool. Let's use that because it's going to get us into the market.
Mhm.
Then we have our tradie skills. So we're going to buy a place that needs a bit of reno, a bit of work done. No worries. That means you're going to buy under market value there.
Mhm.
And to top it all off, they go, okay, now we're going to engage the boys and they're going to help us buy in a market that we wouldn't otherwise know where to buy and get the absolute best possible growth that we can instead
Yeah.
of just buying in their backyard.
Exactly right. And this property is a long-term play. He's a chippy, right? So we're going to get into a renovation. The property is on over 700 square meters. It can be developed. The neighboring property on the back has been subdivided. He could build a granny flat if he wants. So we've got so many options for what we can do moving forward. And because we use the first home buyer scheme, they barely touched their cash in their bank. So we've got a lot of savings sitting there for the renovations for property number two, and then we're going to get that equity uplift at the same time. But again, for a precursor, the market is the important thing. We're not going to just buy a few streets away because we can do this.
Mm.
If it doesn't make sense, we're not going to do it.
100%. Yeah. they would be in a completely different situation if they had have just done it themselves and picked a random suburb. It is the suburb that does 90% of the heavy lifting when a property grows in value.
Yep. And especially if you're doing renos, you want to know that if you go and spend a bit of money on renos and do all this work, that there are sales in that area that show us that you can command that higher price. And we were fortunate enough to have next door
Mhm.
on the market at the time and it sold for, I think, 950. Client number two, Matty, FIFO worker. You've been working quite closely with him, Brodie. So he had an owner occupier in Queensland. He sold that down because he's in the mines. He's gone down the rent vesting route. Wanted to live in an apartment in Brizzy. They're overpriced, but he wanted that for lifestyle. And then what we've done is we've taken the proceeds and we've already bought property number one, and you're currently in the process of buying number two. So the strategy was buy a house or a unit on a large block, which we did in Geelong. Geelong's a great location. Got in before the negative gearing, yield over 4%. And now you're in the process of buying property number two for him, Brodie, which is one of these unit plays with a stronger yield
Yep.
so that we can keep building the portfolio and get some diversification with the assets that we've bought.
Yeah, once again, a great example of someone who's been dealt a deck, a hand,
Hmm.
and they're utilizing that hand to the best of their ability.
Hmm.
So Matty works in FIFO, so he earns a lot of money,
Yep.
but he's not just going and blowing it at every single last second. He's actually investing,
Yep.
and he's investing hard. He's put two properties within a year.
Yep.
Like that is really putting on the pressure and taking advantage of the situation that the property market's in right now,
Mhm.
and also his personal situation. Like you said, got a great property to start things off in a great suburb, and
Mhm.
now it's time to switch the gears a little bit and diversify the portfolio.
Yep.
Get him an apartment, a high yielding apartment at that, so it doesn't draw too much on him.
Yep.
And yeah, it's going to be a fantastic way to really kickstart his overall portfolio.
Exactly right. And it's going to put us in a position because his cash flow is fairly solid after these two properties that because he earns such a strong income, he's going to still be able to save quite a lot of money. So once in 6 to 18 months time, again, we don't know, he's going to be in a position where he's likely got equity, he's likely got more savings, and then we can go in and buy property number three. And really good point with Maddie is Maddie works directly with Kurt. If you watch the last two episodes, Kurt's the FIFO mortgage broker, and he's a very investment savvy broker. Now, if Maddie worked with a generic broker that didn't understand how to build a portfolio, that didn't do it himself, he would not have been coached with the right information to go and do this.
Mm.
Kurt understood where the market sat with the Queensland property that he owned. And he understood the opportunity in Melbourne, and he understood what we needed to do from the asset types and the split of funds to make the portfolio happen and utilize the rent vesting strategy.
Yeah, not all brokers are made the same. I'd almost say like 80% of brokers are just like regular first home mum and dad brokers.
You're
Like,
working with a shit one at the moment for a client.
yes, exactly right. So do your due diligence like you would anything else in life, guys. Just because they're a broker doesn't mean they're going to be able to get you to where you want to go.
Exactly right. It's so important. And especially if you're building a portfolio, you're going to be closer with the broker than you are with us because they're going to be having a lot more touch points. So get along with them and know that they know what they're doing. Number three, one of my favorite clients we're working with at the moment, Connor. So he's tradie in Sydney, works full time and then also runs his own business on the side. He's doing massive hours, probably 70-hour weeks. And we're currently in the process of buying property three. Now, I just want to set the scene with Connor. He came to us through Instagram, and we were going back and forth with conversations for a while. He wanted to buy, but his broker had actually told him that he can't buy. Anyway, we introduced him to one of our brokers that does quite complex scenarios, and with working with Maddie, he was able to get some really good valuations, move funds around, and open up a third purchase that he was told from his previous broker wasn't possible. And also set up a plan in 6 to 12 months' time, once he has enough business statements, BASs, for his business that he's running on the side, that we can then purchase property number 4.
You're literally just singing the truth right there. Like, not every broker is made the same. He had one.
Yeah.
He couldn't get it done.
Yep.
Came to us, connected him with a quality broker.
Yep.
Bang. What he wanted to do is now achievable.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Just having a different conversation.
Exactly. And that glass half full mindset, it was like, okay, no, we will find a solution. We will get this done. And it's trial and error for the brokers. And he's gone from thinking, I'm capped at 2 properties. This was the conversation that I had with him early on, to now, within the next 6-12 months, we're going to double the portfolio. And yeah, I guess over a long-term view, that's going to have such a big change on his life. And he's in his 20s.
Yeah. Great example. Tradie business owner, just a hard go-getter, and wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah. And the property you're under contract for, we probably shouldn't speak about it until the deal's done, but I'll be releasing a reel on it in the coming weeks if it all goes to plan. But
One of the better ones.
One of the best purchases I've seen. I guess I'll briefly touch on it, if that's all right.
You can't help yourself.
I can't help myself. It was bought in 2021 for $623,000 at auction because it's such a great property. It's a unit in one of these areas we're talking about, and we're buying it for $540,000 with a yield of about 6.5%. So $83,000 cheaper, and a yield that's going to allow him to keep building.
Yeah, it's pretty chuffed with that one. I'm happy.
Yeah,
happy with that
It's
one.
one of the best I've seen. So well done, Brodie. And last client before we get into the rapid fire is Thomas. So we started working with Thomas, it would have been about 9 months ago, and he came to us earning a reasonable chippy wage as a 4th-year apprentice. I think it might have been around $70,000-$80,000 a year. Got the borrowing capacity done. He's a really good saver, one of the best I've seen. Reminds me a lot of your situation, Brodie, when you were younger. Not earning the strongest income, but really good at squirreling away the cash. Squirreling.
like a little hoarder.
Yeah, like a little hoarder.
Tucking his money under his
getting the
mattress.
Acorns and bringing them, bringing them away.
There, mate.
Yeah. So 6 months ago, you bought him a property, Brodie, in regional Victoria, 4x2, over 900 square meters of land, with a 5% yield.
Yeah, it's hard to get these purchases now for at least that price. He got in at a great time. However, it can still be done. That just the price has moved.
Exactly right. And with Thomas, he had the goals of building a 3 property portfolio in 3 years. It's a lot of what we do with clients, is getting them to those 3 properties. And we're 6 months post-purchase. And I guess to give the listeners some insight, every 6 to 12 months post-purchase, I jump on a meeting with them. We call it the investment inspection meeting. This is where we set them up on our portfolio tracking app. We check all the cash flow on their purchase. We send an email off to the broker saying, hey, can we get some valuations on the property? And we like to sit in those meetings with the client, with the broker, and myself. And in this meeting, we went through the purchase. So we had 60K of equity sitting there already in 6 months. So over 10% growth already.
That's awesome.
Thomas had kept saving. He had increased his income. And with the broker live on the session, we ran some numbers on what we can do for the next purchase. And it showed us that he's got the borrowing capacity there to make another purchase happen. All we needed to do was wait for that equity to grow a little bit more and the savings. We could have made a purchase happen straight away, but we wanted to make sure that we left him with a bit of buffer. So we basically said, let's save hard over the next 6 months. We should have some more equity. And then before the end of 2026, let's make purchase number 2 happen.
Yeah, I just want to touch on something that you said there, how you bring everyone together. You bring the client or the buyer, obviously yourself, and then the broker. That team aspect, that building your property purchasing team, and then everyone actually collaborating together, it's worth so much more than what it seems. It's genuinely worth its weight on gold, everyone being on the same page, because if you're an investor who wants to make the moves that we're talking about, you can't just have separate parties doing their own thing. Everyone needs to be like a well-oiled machine. So it makes me really happy hearing about these chats, because when you get off that call, Thomas, who's just busting his ass as a chippy,
Yeah.
he's like, I am now busting my ass and I have a goal. I'm
Yeah.
not just doing it for nothing.
Mhm.
Like the plan is in place and I can see it
Yeah.
and it's achievable.
Exactly right. And it's so important to work towards a goal. If you don't have that goal, you're here, there, everywhere, you lack purpose. And it doesn't have to be property, but the point with these sessions is to show people what you can do. And a lot of the time it's opening their mind up to different lending options, maybe going with the strategy of going with a third tier lender on a higher rate, but you get extra borrowing and then refinance in 12 months time. There's so many things you can do, but if you don't have the people that have done it and are going to keep you accountable and push you, because we like to set these goals with clients. And then for me, once we set that goal, all right, what are we doing to achieve it?
Mm.
And that's where we work perfectly together, Brodie. You get the brief from me, the locations, the asset types, you find quality assets like you've done for all of these clients. And then when we jump back on those meetings, it makes my life so easy because we've got equity there. We've got a great purchase. They've seen the results, and then we can put that plan into place.
Yeah. No, we love what we do, and any tradies out there that wanna
Yeah.
that want the right team around them, then reach out.
Yep, exactly right, guys. We've got the team, we've got the buying. We got a call link in the show notes. So
In the show notes.
if you want to jump on a call with me, we've had a few people reach out over the last couple of weeks, and I've jumped on calls. Some young tradies that are making good money, they're saving hard. Few sessions later on in the week and next week with them, running them through what we can do. So it's super exciting to see people listening and reaching out on that. So amazing pod. This has actually been probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this.
So far. And let's finish off with the rapid fire, Brodie, and then we
Sounds
can wrap it up. So I'll ask you four, you ask me four,
Yep.
kind of summarize what we've gone through. First question: the negative gearing grandfathering window closes in July 2027. Is that a genuine reason to buy now, or is it overblown?
Yeah, I'm always gonna say it's a great reason to buy now. I don't think it's you should be buying for that particular reason.
Correct.
I mean, is it like an added benefit to buying? Sure. But no, you should just be buying now because of everything we spoke about earlier in the potty. Yeah, a little cherry on top, whatever. But no, you should be buying because of the fundamentals.
Yeah, definitely. What's a regional market you really like at the moment, and why?
Oh, this is
Hitting you with the hard
a
ones.
tough one.
Yeah.
There are a couple of ones. I like Bendigo, and Bendigo's ran a
Mm.
bit of a race, and I also like Geelong. It's tough. Anyway, the reason why I like those two, and they've both already done some growth, but you can still get some decent affordable properties in
Mm.
there. But also, and this is the majority of it, I know it's supposed to be a rapid fire, but they've got the building blocks of a sustainable what's the word I'm looking for? It's sustainable growth,
Yeah.
right? It's not just going to be a short term
Mhm.
regional like pump and dump,
Yep.
quick, hit of equity. They're actually locations that are growing and building, and people spend their whole lives there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's some of the reasons why.
Yeah. And I think to touch on those two markets as well, probably what we're seeing on the buying side is, yeah, over the last year, 18 months, they've had some really strong growth. But over maybe the last few months with these changes, we've actually seen them slow down a little bit.
Mm.
So that buying window
Mm.
now for those markets is a really good time. Super strong economies. And yeah, they'll perform really well in the coming years. Rate cuts, I believe, are coming eventually. Should you wait before buying, or is waiting the wrong move?
No, I've never waited for a rate cut in my life. To be honest, I actually buy when the rates are the highest, and that's just because I want to get in as quickly as I can.
Yep.
I'm not waiting for a rate cut to decide when I get in or not. I'm getting in because I think time in the market will far outstrip you waiting for the right opportunity to pounce just because you're going to save,
Mm,
a couple hundred to few thousand a year. Like it's the growth from that property is going to destroy anything that you're saving from rates.
exactly right. And on top of that, when rates drop, demand increases, right? So
Exactly.
if you're waiting, how many other people are waiting? Well, then you're going to have a lot more demand, and means you're going to have to pay more and beat other people out for property at the same time.
Great point.
Brody, you're purchasing this year.
Mhm.
What are your options and why?
So I was initially, and I'm still on on the fence, but buying regional, maybe something that's a little bit more run down, just to get more of a land component.
So a house?
A house, yeah, yeah. But with the no negative gearing, and also with all the value that we see in these units and
Mm.
apartments, I'm actually leaning a little bit more towards the
Mm.
units and apartments just because it's an easier hold
Yeah.
and there's so much pressure on growth that hasn't been achieved yet. So I'd essentially be buying in at the start of the cycle.
Very interesting point. And I'm leaning the same way. Actually, I'm 100% leaned that way. I'm fully leaned in.
Yeah.
But important point to note is we're extending our portfolios.
Mm,
If you were starting your portfolio,
mm.
would you still be going that option or would you be going the regional play?
I'd be looking at regional, but once again, you can still get priced out because regional has
Mm.
moved a fair bit. If I'm tossing up between a shitty regional that's got a decent bit of land or maybe a really well looked after um, villa unit that is the same price, it's still got 200 squares, it's
Hmm.
in a better location. I might even lean towards the villa unit
Mm.
because it hasn't had much growth at all and it's in a more desirable location. These are the things you have to weigh up.
Yep.
And if you are going to buy a regional, can you stomach maybe having a property that isn't of a higher quality to get that land asset?
Yeah. So basically, when you're saying shitty property, you're meaning something that needs work.
Yes.
And because we're actually buying in our home state for the first time,
Mm.
you can go out and do some works
Very
and
true.
get that equity uplift.
Very true. Yeah.
Yep.
If you're a tradie out there who is on the tools and you're happy to travel to the location,
Yep.
then by golly, do it. All right,
Beautiful.
my turn, big dog. Uh the market feels uncertain right now.
Mhm.
Give me the one data point that makes you want to buy.
For me, the biggest one is the rental yields that we went through with those St Kilda units and then the Mordialloc units, as well as the vacancy rates. When you have vacancy rates that tight and you have rental yields that have grown so much, to me, that is one of the best early pre indicators of price growth. And especially with the tax changes, getting a sharp yield, um, and where I think, I guess, interest rates are going, I just see these properties being self-sufficient, like the rent covering all of your costs within a very short time frame. So it's going to be around those rental figures.
Yeah, love that. All right. So we're buying a lot of boutique apartments in Melbourne, sub 800K.
Yep.
What does an investment grade actually look like for those type of buyers on the ground?
Investment grade is going to be small complex, maybe max of 15, ideally in a pocket that has a mix of houses and blocks of units, something that has low strata, typically around 3,000 per year, and something that has no building lawsuits in place.
No special levies.
No special levies. There's a lot of newer builds, and again, this is why we're focusing on the old ones, where the builders have done a shitty job because they can't produce a quality product for the cost that they've put up to build them for. And it's leaving buyers having to put up 15, 20 grand for rectification works. So yeah, there's some good indicators as to what I would look at.
Nice. And they're only indicators, guys. Make sure you do more research.
Yeah.
Um, of the three asset types that we're buying in 2026 for clients, house, villa unit, boutique apartment, which one has the most conviction behind it right now?
Well, I'm going to go off of conviction, meaning that what we're seeing from demand supply metrics right this second.
Yep.
And I would say those beachside villa units,
Mm.
honestly, because everyone wants to live there. No one can afford the houses in the area. There isn't an oversupply of them. Vacancy rates are very low. Stock on market's very low. And we're seeing the right people buying them. We're seeing middle-aged families, first home buyers, but not the average first home buyer or middle-aged person. People that, earning strong
Mm.
incomes.
I really like that point, and it's something I've given a bit of thought to, because with all the changes that are happening right now, they don't benefit investors anymore.
Yep.
They benefit homeowners.
Mhm.
So if you're going to buy an investment property, it makes a little bit more sense to focus that purchase in a place where people want to live, where homeowners want to, maybe use their first home a buyer's scheme, or maybe a downsizer might want to move to.
Yep.
It's You got to kind of think outside the box if we're trying to adjust to these new rules.
Correct. And it's a very good point because markets where most of the buyers have been investors, it's going to push down demand dramatically compared to areas where most of the current buyers are wanting to live in the property. That's a clear difference as to where you're going to see price growth in that one statistic and overview right there.
Yep. All right, last one. If a tradie came to you with 80K saved tomorrow and asked where to put it, what's the answer?
Oh, this is a very common one that we do get. First off, I'd probably say what market, where do you live? Because obviously there is that opportunity to use the first home buyer's deposit, but with a very particular plan to do some renos, get the equity uplift, and then move back home or rent. So it would probably be to, if you are living in Melbourne, to look at using that grant, getting help from someone like us, and finding something that you can increase the equity through your trade skills. And then you're going to have money left over still from that, with the plan of in 12 months' time, keep saving, increasing the income. And then hopefully we might have some equity there that we can then use to purchase property number two.
Mm, love it.
Lovely. Well, thanks, Brody. It was good having you back. I think I'll give you the pass. I think we'll keep you on the potty,
I get to
mate. I
stay. Am
think
I
you
off probation?
off
Or
probation.
yes, come on.
We'll keep you on.
No, this was a good one. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, hopefully the listeners got plenty of value, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.